It was 2 a.m. when the knock came. Not a soft tap, not the kind you mistake for the wind or the creak of a neighbor's door, but a deliberate, heavy knock that cut through the silence like a hammer through glass. Room 107 of the Sunset Valley Motel was never supposed to be home. The wallpaper peeled like it was trying to escape, the air smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap bleach, and the heater coughed more than it worked. I'd been living there for 3 months, long enough for the front desk clerk to stop asking when I'd be checking out. That night, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, eating cold beans straight from a can. My wedding ring, once a symbol of everything good in my life, sat on the table beside me, a piece of metal I'd sold and bought back more times than I wanted to admit. When the knock came, I froze. "Who the hell is knocking at this hour?" I muttered. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a perfectly pressed $5,000 suit. His tie was sharp, his shoes polished, his expression unreadable. He didn't belong in a place like this, not in a motel where the walls were so thin you could hear your neighbor crying himself to sleep. He looked straight into the peephole. "Vernon Hutchkins?" he asked as soon as I cracked open the door. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "That's me. If you're here about money, I don't have any." He smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Your ex-wife, Melody, doesn't know I'm here. But what I'm about to tell you will change. Everything. You thought you knew about her cancer, your divorce, and why she really left you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "My name is Vernon Hutchkins. I'm 45 years old, and 6 months ago, I had it all. A thriving construction company, a home I built with my own hands, 2 amazing kids, and a wife I'd loved since high school. Now, I had a broken-down pickup, a few boxes of memories, and this motel room." I stepped aside. "5 minutes," I said. "Then you need to leave." He entered like a man used to walking into boardrooms, not run-down motels. He set his leather briefcase on my bed. That briefcase alone was worth more than my truck, and turned to face me. "My name is Theodore Ashford," he said, voice calm, deliberate. "I'm a private investigator, and I've been hired by someone who cares about you very much, someone who never believed the story your wife told." "Ex-wife," I corrected, my throat tightening around the word. He nodded slightly. "Of course. Your ex-wife, Melody." He opened the briefcase with a soft click and pulled out a thick manila folder. "Tell me, Mr. Hutchkins," he said, "did you ever meet Dr. Harrison Vance before your wife's diagnosis?" I frowned. "Her oncologist? No. She found him through some specialist referral. Said he was the best in Denver for ovarian cancer. Why?" Theodore slid a photograph across the bedspread toward me. It showed Melody, smiling, carefree, at what looked like a family barbecue. Beside her was a man I recognized instantly, Dr. Harrison Vance. But the date printed in the corner made my stomach drop. It was taken 3 years before her diagnosis. "What are you saying?" I asked. Theodore met my gaze. "Dr. Vance is your ex-wife's second cousin, and together they've been planning something truly evil for the past 2 years." The room tilted. My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed the back of the chair to steady myself. "That's impossible," I whispered. I saw her sick. I saw her losing weight, vomiting, crying through the pain. "All carefully orchestrated," he said. "Every symptom, every doctor visit, every tear, part of an elaborate plan." He reached into his briefcase again and produced a document, a bank statement from the Cayman Islands. "This account belongs to your ex-wife," he continued. "Every time you sold something to pay for her treatments, the money went straight here. Your house brought in $400,000. Your construction equipment, $200,000. Even your father's Harley, your wedding ring. All of it." My chest tightened. The air felt heavy, suffocating. "She never had cancer?" Theodore's voice softened. "The medical records were falsified. The chemo treatments. Just saline solution and vitamins designed to make her appear sick. The weight loss was from dieting and prescription meds. Dr. Vance and her divorce attorney, Brent Caldwell, helped her build the illusion. and the story that destroyed your life. I sat down hard on the bed. My hands trembled. I could barely process the words. Brent Caldwell, the slick, ruthless lawyer who'd shredded me in court, the man who stood beside Melody as she took everything, my home, my business, my children. How long have you known this? I asked quietly. I've been investigating for 6 months, Theodore said. I was hired the day after your divorce was finalized. By who? He smiled for the first time. Your father, Earl Hutchkins. I froze. My father? Yes, he said. He never believed Melody was sick. He told me, my boy would give everything for family, but I'll be damned if I let him lose everything to a lie. The words hit something deep inside me. My father, the man I'd pushed away when pride got in the way, had been fighting for me this whole time. The truth is, Theodore continued, your mother helped too. She followed Melody to her fake treatments. Your brother, Dalton, tracked the money. Your family has been working behind the scenes for months, trying to save you. I buried my face in my hands. For the first time in a long time, tears came. Hot, angry, relieved. I thought I'd been alone all this time. Turns out I'd never been alone at all. What happens now? I asked. Theodore straightened his tie and stood. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., the FBI will arrest Melody and Brent Caldwell for fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. Dr. Vance has already confessed in exchange for a reduced sentence. He paused. Your children know the truth. They're with your parents right now, waiting for you to come home. Home? I scoffed. I don't have a home anymore. Theodore opened his briefcase again and slid a folded document across the bed. A property deed. Actually, he said, you do. Your father bought your house back the day you sold it. He's been maintaining it through a trust, keeping it exactly as you left it. He said you'd need it when this was all over. I stared at the paper, my address printed neatly across the top. My home, the one I'd built from the ground up. It had been waiting for me all along. Why didn't anyone tell me sooner? I whispered. He sighed. Because we needed proof. Melody was careful, smart. One mistake and she would have vanished with the money and your kids. We had to wait until we could prove every single crime beyond doubt. Theodore reached for the doorknob but turned back one last time. Your father asked me to tell you something, he said. You did exactly what I raised you to do. You put family first. You sacrificed everything for love. The fact that she exploited that doesn't make you weak, Vernon. It makes her evil, and evil only wins when good men stop fighting. The room was silent except for the hum of the flickering neon sign outside. He looked at me, eyes soft but firm. Your fight isn't over, Mr. Hutchkins. It's just beginning. As he reached for the door, I found my voice again. You said someone knocked and changed everything, I said quietly. But you haven't changed anything yet. You just told me the truth. Theodore smiled, broader this time. Mr. Hutchkins, the truth is the change. He paused. In 12 hours, your ex-wife will be in federal custody. Your children will be back in your arms. Your business, your life, can be rebuilt. But more importantly, you'll finally know that your family never gave up on you. If that's not everything changing, he let the words hang in the air. I don't know what is. And with that, he was gone. The door clicked shut. I sat there in the silence, the weight of everything pressing down. Grief, anger, relief, disbelief. For months, I'd lived in that motel room, drowning in shame, thinking I'd failed everyone I loved. I thought Melody's betrayal had broken me, but now I realized she hadn't broken me. She'd only paused me. The truth had just restarted my life. I looked around the room one last time. The unmade bed, the flickering light, the empty cans, the echoes of nights spent crying quietly into the dark. It was over, but before I could even think about sleep, the memories came rushing back. The before, the days when everything was still perfect. Thursday morning, March sunlight spilling through the kitchen window. Melody was still asleep upstairs, her hair spread across the pillow like it always had been. 20 years of marriage, and I still thought I was the luckiest man alive. She'd left me a note on the nightstand, like she did every morning. Coffee's ready. Lunch is in the fridge. Love you, Vern. Downstairs, my son Colton was at the kitchen table, 14 years old and all knees and elbows, the kind of kid who hadn't quite grown into his strength yet. "Morning, Dad," he said, eyes on his playbook. "Can we run plays later?" "After work," I told him. "We'll throw until your arm gives out." Piper came down next, my daughter carrying her violin like it was made of gold. 14, just like her twin brother. Bright, determined, unstoppable. "Dad, my spring concert's next month," she said, adjusting her bow. "You'll be there, right?" I smiled. Wouldn't miss it for the world. That was our life. Simple, ordinary, good. Breakfast chatter. Packed lunches. Kisses goodbye. I'd walk out to the truck, coffee in hand, and head to the job site where my crew was already loading tools. Chester Pike, my foreman for 8 years, would hand me the schedule. "Got 2 new builds on the east side," he'd say. "Weather looks good this week." "Let's make it count. We built homes for families. Real homes, not just houses." I always said there was something sacred about putting up walls that would hold someone's laughter, someone's dreams. Back then, I didn't know my own walls were already cracking. I didn't know the woman I loved was slowly building a life without me. One bank transfer, one lie, one doctor's appointment at a time. I didn't know that someday I'd lose everything, and that my own father would be the one quietly working to give it all back. But I do now. And tomorrow, when the sun rises over Denver, the truth won't just set me free, it's going to burn down everything that tried to destroy me. It was just another morning on the Riverside property, or at least that's what I thought. "Vernon, we got the Riverside framing done today, but Mrs. Patterson wants to change her kitchen layout." Again, I chuckled under my breath. 3rd time this month, 4th, but who's counting? That was the rhythm of my life back then. The relentless grind of construction, the challenges, the setbacks, the clients who constantly change their minds, the lumber shortages, the weather delaying progress. And yet, somehow, despite it all, we built something beautiful. My crew was solid. 8 men, early to arrive, late to leave. Men who didn't just work for me, they worked with pride. Men who knew that every nail, every board, every beam mattered. Sometimes my father, Earl Hutchkins, would stop by. At 73, he was still built like a linebacker, the kind of man who could carry 2 full sheets of plywood in each hand and never break a sweat. He ran Hutchkins Construction before me, back when everything was done with hand tools and sheer determination. "Good work, son," he'd say, running his hand along the framing, checking corners like only a man who had built 100 houses could. "Thanks, Dad," I'd reply, pride swelling in my chest. He'd remind me of the small things, Sunday dinners at my parents' house, a sacred ritual. My mother, June, would cook enough food to feed an army. Dalton, my younger brother, would arrive with his wife and 3 kids, grease-stained hands and all. We'd eat until we couldn't move, then sit on the back porch. The kids running in the yard as we reminisced, laughed, and sometimes argued over trivial things, the kind of normal life you take for granted. Melody would help Mom in the kitchen. Their laughter would drift through the open window, a gentle reminder of why I loved her, why I'd built my life around these moments. That Tuesday began like any other, but that day would mark the turning point, the moment when my world began to fracture and every decision I had made would be tested beyond my imagination. Melody had been feeling tired, complaining about stomach pains, avoiding the doctor. I pressed her to get checked, but she kept putting it off, until the call came at work, a call that would shatter everything I thought I knew. "Vern, I'm at the hospital. They found something. Can you come?" I slammed my truck into drive, breaking every speed limit, adrenaline surging, fear in my chest. Denver General's parking lot blurred past as I raced to her side. There she was, in the oncology ward, wearing a paper gown. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Dr. Harrison Vance stood beside her, "Calm, imposing, Mr. Hutchkins," he said, voice steady and professional. "Your wife has stage 3 ovarian cancer. We need to start aggressive treatment immediately." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Cancer. The same disease that had taken my grandmother, my uncle, Melody's father. My legs gave out and I sank into the visitor's chair, trying to process the world crumbling around me. Numbers blurred. Treatment options, survival rates, costs, all meaningless in the face of the green eyes staring at me, trembling, searching for reassurance. In the parking garage afterward, she broke down completely. "I don't want to die. Vern," she whispered, sobs shaking her frame. "I want to see our kids grow up. I want to grow old with you." I held her face, calloused hands gripping her delicate jaw. "Baby, I'll sell my soul to keep you here. We're going to beat this thing, whatever it takes, whatever it costs." Her kiss was desperate, filled with terror and hope all at once. "Promise me. You won't let me die." "I promise, Mel," I whispered, my heart hammering. "On everything I am, everything I have. You're going to survive this." That night, after the kids were asleep, we spread insurance paperwork across the kitchen table like a battlefield map. Deductibles, coverage limits, experimental treatment exclusions, a labyrinth designed to crush the unprepared. Insurance would cover $60,000. The rest would come out of us. I made plans, spreadsheets, lists, calls to contractors. I would move heaven and earth for her. I had to. That's what family is. That's what a real man does. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, the first bills arrived. $47,000 for diagnostics and consultations alone. Insurance covered $12,000. I emptied our savings, paid the rest. Melody found me staring at the statement the next morning. "Vern, maybe we should get a second opinion. Find a cheaper option." "There is no cheaper option for stage 3, I said firmly. "Dr. Vance is the best. That's what she needs." She kissed my forehead, early morning sunlight spilling into our kitchen. I barely noticed she'd already showered and dressed at 5 a.m., heading for her treatment. "You don't need to come," she said. "Focus on work." The construction business was strained. Cash flow tight. 3 houses under contract, crews to pay, suppliers to satisfy. The bills kept piling up, each one threatening to tip our world into chaos. Chester Pike, my foreman, noticed first. His face turned white. "Boss, you okay? You've been distracted." "Melody's sick," I said. Simple, honest. Chester's expression tightened, memories of his late wife haunting him. "Jesus, what do you need? A miracle. Or about 300 Same thing these days," I muttered. He hesitated, then said, "I've got $20,000 saved. It's yours." I shook my head. "I can't take it. You gave me a job when no one else would, after Beth died. I can't take your money." "Take it, Vern. Pride is expensive when your wife is dying." I took it. Because pride, as I would learn, was the most costly thing of all. Then came Dr. Vance's recommendation for experimental treatment. A new drug combination. Not FDA approved, $180,000 for a protocol that promised remarkable results. I sold everything. The excavator, dump trucks, crane, every tool that let me take on larger projects. Sold it all online, called clients, explained delays. Mrs. Patterson understood. The Riverside developers didn't. They canceled contracts, pulled deposits, and $60,000 in projected profit vanished like smoke. I had to let the crew go, men who had celebrated birthdays with my kids, who had watched my father retire. I shut the trailer door, voice heavy with regret. "I'm sorry, boys. File for unemployment. Find other work. When this is over, I'll hire you back." Miguel, my best framer, shook his head. "We can work for less. Take pay cuts." "It wouldn't be enough," I admitted. Chester lingered behind, suspicion in his eyes. "This doesn't feel right, Vern. Something's off. Cancer doesn't care about what feels right." "Chester," I said, masking my doubt. 3 months in, our house, the one I built from nothing, went on the market. Colton caught me in the workshop, Dad. Are we really moving? Temporary, son. When Mom gets better, we'll build another house. He looked me in the eyes. I don't want another house. I want this one, and so did I, but it was gone in 2 weeks. Sold for $420,000. After mortgage payoff, $300,000 went straight to medical bills. We moved into a 2-bedroom rental downtown. Piper and Colton shared a room for the first time. I could hear her crying at night through thin walls. My father showed up one evening, saw me packing up tools to sell. Vernon, this has gone far enough. Let me help. I won't take it, I said, stubborn, prideful. He slammed his hand on the table. Damn your pride. You're drowning and won't take a life preserver. Your wife is sick. Our family will help. That's how this works. I stayed firm, and every day after I paid. My wedding ring, 3-carat platinum, a promise of love, sold at Goldstein's pawn shop. Mr. Goldstein, knowing my family for 40 years, looked at me with pity. Vernon, this ring has a story. Your grandfather bought the original in 1955. You had it reset for Melody. How much can you give me? I asked, trying to hide my heartbreak. It's worth $8,000. I can give you 15. I shook my head. I can't take charity, Mr. Goldstein, and yet piece by piece I sold everything. Every tool, every possession, every tangible memory of a life I thought was mine, all to keep her alive. Looking back now, knowing what I know, the pattern was there all along. The late-night calls, the hurried phone conversations, the way she avoided talking about assets. But back then, I didn't see it. All I saw was a wife I loved, desperate, terrified, needing me to be strong. I was strong, or so I thought, and yet the very person I was trying to save was the one holding the knife. The bills kept coming. The sacrifices piled higher. Pride became a dangerous luxury. Every day, every hour, every decision balanced on the edge of ruin and hope, and in that desperate struggle, I realized, sometimes love alone isn't enough. Sometimes, the person you trust the most is the one capable of destroying everything. As I handed over the last of my tools, the last of my pride, the last piece of our shared history, I couldn't know how far this web of lies would reach, or how much more I would have to lose before the truth finally emerged. But deep down, I knew this. The fight was far from over, and the moment it was about to turn would change everything. It started with a single act of desperation, a decision made in love, in fear, in hope. I walked into Goldstein's pawn shop with a platinum wedding band I'd promised Melody she'd never have to remove. The owner, a man who'd known my family for decades, looked at me with that mix of pity and understanding that cuts deeper than a knife. It's not charity, he said, almost reading my thoughts. It's an investment in a good man having a bad year. I took the $15,000 he offered and added it to the $10,000 I'd gotten for selling my father's Harley. Yes, without telling him. That covered another month of treatment. Month after month, I poured every tangible piece of my life into keeping her alive. And slowly, painstakingly, Melody began to get better. Her weight returned, the sharp cheekbones softened, color returned to her skin. Dr. Vance showed us scans, and for the first time in a long while, hope crept back into our lives. The treatment is working better than expected, he announced. I think we're looking at full remission within 2 months, Melody cried with relief. I felt exhaustion, pure, hollow, bone-deep exhaustion. We had won, but at what cost? I had nothing left. No business, no house, no savings. But she was alive. That was supposed to be enough. Sunday dinner arrived. Dalton pulled me aside, concern etched deep in his features. Vern, something's not right. Melody seems different. I laughed it off weakly. She's been through hell, I told myself. It's understandable if she's changed. No, it's something else, Dalton insisted. The way she looks at you, it's like she's disappointed. I'm telling you, Vern, trust me on this. I didn't want to see it. I was too tired, too broke, too relieved that she was alive. I wanted to believe that love was enough, that sacrifice was enough. But Dalton wasn't imagining it, and deep down I was slowly starting to sense the truth. The same week Dr. Vance declared her cancer-free, Melody's phone began buzzing constantly. Text messages made her smile, her laughter lighter than it had been in months. When I asked who she was talking to, I remember her saying, not looking at me, "It's just my support group. They understand what I've been through. You wouldn't get it." Her secrets. She had them now, though she'd spent 20 years sharing everything with me. I was too exhausted to fight, too financially crippled to think straight, and far too relieved that she was alive to notice the subtle distance forming between us. 6 weeks after her final scan, I returned from a grueling day labor job to find suitcases in our bedroom. Melody was folding clothes with a precision I'd only seen when she was angry. The apartment smelled of her perfume, the expensive kind she hadn't touched in months, suddenly back in full force. "Mel, what's happening? Are we going somewhere?" She didn't look up. "I'm leaving you, Vernon." The words pierced me deeper than any blade. "Leaving? After everything? I don't understand. Is this about the money? I'll rebuild it, Mel. Give me time." Her eyes finally met mine. Cold. Icy. "Look at yourself, Vernon. You're pathetic. Working day labor, wearing the same 3 shirts because you sold everything else. I sold everything to save your life, and that's the problem." Her laughter cut like glass, cruel, sharp, and unfamiliar. A real man wouldn't have lost everything. A real man would have kept his business, his house, his dignity. I swallowed hard. "I gave up everything for you." "No," she said, voice icy, venomous. "You gave up everything because you're weak." And then she dropped the bomb I had seen coming but never expected. My lawyer, Brent Caldwell, he saw what I see. He saw my potential, saw what I could become without you dragging me down. Brent Caldwell. The name hit me like a brick. The man with the billboard on I-25, the one advertising, "Take him for everything he's worth." "You're having an affair." "It's not an affair when the marriage is already dead, Vernon. It died the day you sold our house. Maybe even before. I watched you scramble for money, beg at pawn shops, fire your crew like a coward. It was disgusting. My hands shook, heart pounding. I had spent 14 months bleeding for her, giving everything I had. And now she was abandoning me, filing for divorce and planning to take our children. "The papers are ready," she said, handing them over like a work invoice. "Brent says you'll need your own lawyer, if you can afford one. I'm seeking full custody, spousal support, and half of any future earnings from your construction business when you rebuild it. You can't take my kids, Melody." "I can, and I will. They need stability, Vernon. Not a father who lives in motels and works under the table for cash." Within an hour, Dalton found me sitting on the apartment steps, divorce papers in hand, numb with disbelief. "This is insane, Vern. She can't do this. You saved her life." Apparently, that was the problem. Saving her life meant I was weak. Legal aid assigned me a public defender, Patricia Moss, fresh out of law school and buried under cases. She skimmed my financial records with the excitement of someone reading a grocery list. "You have no assets, no steady income, and your living space doesn't meet custody requirements for 2 teenagers," she said flatly. "Mrs. Hutchkins has already moved into a 4-bedroom house in Cherry Creek with Mr. Caldwell. It doesn't look good." The custody hearing came 3 weeks later. I wore my only suit, the one reserved for funerals. Melody arrived in designer clothes I'd never seen before. Brent Caldwell at her side like a man who had already won. Judge Morin Thornton presided. Fair but uncompromising. Melody went first, spinning a story of me as unstable, financially irresponsible, possibly depressed. "He sold our family home without truly consulting me," she told the judge, her tears perfectly timed. "He made reckless financial decisions that left our children without stability. I'm concerned about his mental state." When my turn came, I tried to explain. "Your Honor, I sold everything to pay for Melody's cancer treatment. Medical bills totaled over $300,000. Caldwell interrupted, smooth and cold. "My client's health information is private. But I can assure the court she would have survived standard treatment. Mr. Hutchkins chose excessive measures that bankrupted the family unnecessarily. Excessive. The word hit me like a hammer. My children were brought in. Colton's eyes avoided mine. Piper stared at her hands. "Would you prefer to live with your mother or father?" the judge asked. "Mom's house is better for us," Colton replied flatly, rehearsed. Piper just nodded, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to scream, to fight, to expose the manipulation, but I had no proof. Patricia Moss said nothing. She seemed defeated before we had even begun. The ruling was swift. Full custody to Melody. Supervised visitation every other weekend. $500 in monthly child support. 30% of future earnings above $40,000 for spousal support. "Your Honor," I whispered, barely holding myself together. "I don't even have $500. "Then find employment quickly, or face contempt charges," the judge said. Outside, Melody walked past me with the kids. Colton tried to stop, but she pulled him along. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Brent Caldwell stopped beside me. "You should have just let her go when you had the chance, Vernon." "Some men aren't meant to play in the big leagues," I said, my voice shaking. "I loved her, and that was your first mistake. Love is for people who can afford it." That night, I moved into the Sunset Valley Motel. $39 a night, paid weekly. Mrs. Chen, the owner, didn't ask questions when I handed over wrinkled cash. "Room 107, you look like you need quiet," she said, handing me the key. The room smelled of cigarettes and failure. One bed, one chair, a TV with 3 channels. I sat down, called Dalton. "I lost everything, Del. Kids, wife, my life." "You didn't lose everything, Vern," Dalton said. "You're still here. As long as you're here, you can fight back." "With what?" I whispered, staring at the water-stained ceiling. "I have nothing left." 3 weeks passed. Day, labor, and silence. I stopped answering calls, stopped hoping, stopped believing. Melody was living in a mansion with her lawyer. My kids thought I was a failure, and I was eating canned beans in a motel that rented rooms by the hour. And then, one night at 2 a.m., a knock came at my door that would change everything. But what stood behind that door would make me question everything. I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and betrayal. The truth was about to hit, and it would hit harder than any cancer, any bill, any heartbreak I had endured, because sometimes the people you save are the ones planning your destruction, and when the world falls apart, the only question left is, how far would you go to take it back? It was 2:00 in the morning. Darkness wrapped the Sunset Valley Motel like a suffocating blanket. I existed, yes, but barely. Just another broken man in a room that smelled of cigarettes and failure. And then there was a knock at the door, a single, sharp knock that cut through the emptiness, slicing through the quiet despair that had become my life. I opened the door to Theodore Ashford, a man who carried the weight of truth like armor, and the truth he brought would shatter everything I thought I knew. The motel room suddenly felt smaller, claustrophobic, as Theodore began laying out evidence across the bed. Documents, photos, messages, a damning trail that painted the story of betrayal so vivid it made my chest ache just to look at it. Bank statements from the Cayman Islands, hidden accounts, text messages between Melody and Dr. Vance, timestamps when she knew I couldn't be there. Photos of Melody and Brent Caldwell together, 2 years ago, long before the nightmare cancer diagnosis. I stared at them, frozen. My voice barely rose above a whisper. This can't be real. I saw her suffer. I watched her vomit. I watched her waste away. The fear in her eyes. The tears. Theodore pulled out a medical report. I swallowed hard, my stomach tightening like a fist. Ipac syrup induces vomiting. Fentanyl causes rapid weight loss. Anxiety medications create realistic panic symptoms. Dr. Vance prescribed all of these under the guise of managing treatment side effects. Your wife was essentially poisoning herself just enough to seem sick while you destroyed your life to save hers. I staggered back. The room spun. I needed air. "There's more?" I croaked, dread tightening every muscle. "Much more," Theodore said, pulling out a transcript. This is a recorded conversation between Melody and Caldwell 3 days before she filed for divorce. The relevant portion, his voice was calm, cold, deliberate, like a man who had seen betrayal before but never like this. Caldwell said, "Is Vernon suspicious?" Melody responded, "He's too exhausted to think straight. The fool sold his wedding ring yesterday. Actually cried at the pawn shop." Caldwell laughed. "Perfect. File the papers Monday. By the time he figures anything out, we'll be in Bermuda with his money." The words slammed into me, harder than any storm, any pain I had endured. They laughed. About me. They watched me sell my grandfather's ring, watched me bleed myself dry, and laughed. My fists found the wall. Drywall cracked. Blood ran down my knuckles, and still I didn't feel it. Rage consumed me. Fury burned like a wildfire through my veins. Theodore's eyes met mine. "Your father suspected something when Melody refused to let him visit during treatments. She claimed it was too emotional for her. But he knew better. That's why he hired me 6 months ago. 6 months. 6 months I had been living in this hell, blinded by exhaustion and grief, unaware that my father was quietly orchestrating a counterstrike. We needed ironclad evidence. She was careful, meticulous, a con artist in every sense. One wrong move and she could have disappeared with your money and your children. But we built a case. And now, Theodore's phone played a video. Dr. Harrison Vance sat in what looked like an FBI interrogation room, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "You are confessing to medical fraud, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud in exchange for a reduced sentence. Is that correct?" "Yes," Vance replied, trembling. "Melody is my cousin. She came to me 2 years ago with this plan. She said her husband was boring, that she deserved better. She wanted out but needed money to start over. She offered me 30% of whatever she collected. I have gambling debts. I needed the money. I helped her." I sank back onto the bed. My mind reeled. Never had she had cancer. Every scan, every treatment, every agonizing moment. A lie, an elaborate, cruel con. Theodore paused the video. There's 3 hours of confession. He details everything, including how Melody started her relationship with Caldwell before the fake diagnosis. Caldwell gave her the idea after handling another client's divorce where the spouse had cancer. Every calculated moment, every tear, every sacrifice you made, manipulated, staged, stolen from you to serve their ends. I buried my face in my hands. My children, my sweet kids, my little world. Did they believe I was a failure? Theodore pulled out another document. Your father has been meeting with them secretly. 2 weeks ago, Colton called him after seeing his mother shred documents. Your children know the truth now. They're at his house waiting for you. The custody order? Irrelevant in 4 hours. At 6 a.m., the FBI will arrest Melody and Brent Caldwell for medical fraud, insurance fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and custodial interference. Dr. Vance is already in federal custody. My chest heaved. The impossible was becoming real. Theodore reached into his briefcase and pulled out a deed. My house, the one I had built with my own hands, purchased quietly by my father the day I sold it, hidden behind a shell company to prevent Melody from discovering it. My home, waiting for me. Tears blurred my vision. My father, whom I had pushed away, had been fighting for me all this time. Every day, every sacrifice, every quiet act of love. Unseen, yet monumental, and there's more, Theodore said. Chester Pike and your construction crew have been gathering at your father's house every Sunday. They've turned down permanent jobs doing day labor like you, waiting for you to return. Your father has been supporting them financially when needed. They're ready for you. I could barely speak. My throat closed from the weight of it all. Theodore stood. Your father wanted me to give you this. He handed me car keys. My truck maintained ready. Every dent, every coffee stain, every crack in the windshield, preserved. my life waiting to be reclaimed, and then a business card. Theodore Ashford, private investigator. On the back, a simple note, my father's handwriting. Son, a man isn't measured by what he loses, but by what he's willing to sacrifice for family. You sacrificed everything. Now, let your family help you rebuild. No more pride. Just come home. I could barely comprehend it. My father's voice echoed in my mind as Theodore left. Your ex-wife thought she broke you. She thought you were weak for giving everything to save her, but she never understood that your strength wasn't in what you owned. It was in what you were willing to lose. That's not weakness. That's strength. I sat in darkness, room 107, for an hour, absorbing the weight of betrayal, the surge of vindication, the magnitude of love and sacrifice that had surrounded me without my knowledge. Finally, I rose, showered, put on my last clean shirt, walked into the parking lot. My truck gleamed under the first light of dawn. I ran my hand over the steering wheel. Same crack in the windshield. Same coffee stain. Familiar. Waiting. Mine. I drove to my father's house as the sun rose, painting the sky with hope for the first time in over a year. The porch was alive with my family. My children, my parents, ready for me. Colton and Piper leapt into my arms, sobbing, clinging, apologizing. Dad, we're sorry. Mom made us say those things. She said she'd send us to military school if we didn't. Piper's voice broke as she hugged me tight. Colton, trying to hold back tears, pressed closer than ever before. I saw the truth in their eyes. They knew, they understood, and I realized that for all the pain, all the loss, all the deception, it had led me here. My father stood at the porch, older, a general, weary but victorious. Son, he said simply. Then don't say anything. Just come inside, I replied, my voice trembling. Your mother made breakfast. Your crew is on their way, and we have a business to rebuild. But first, we eat. You look like hell. As we stepped into the house, the warmth of family, home, and redemption washing over me, my phone rang. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize, and in that moment I knew. The story wasn't over, not by a long shot. Because when lies run this deep, when betrayal cuts this sharp, the next move can change everything. Again. And the real question lingers in the quiet. What will I do now that the full truth has been revealed? The phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, my voice still raw from the chaos of the past months. Mr. Hutchkins, this is Agent Sarah Coleman with the FBI, the voice said, calm but with an edge of authority that made my stomach tighten. We have Melody and Brent Caldwell in custody. We'll need you to come to the federal building this afternoon to give a statement. I froze. My mind raced. Are they going to prison? I barely breathed. With the evidence we have, she continued, they're both looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. The money has been frozen and will be returned to you as restitution. I hung up, my hands trembling. I looked at my family. My mother, tears streaming down her face, clutching her hands to her chest. Dalton, punching the air and whooping in triumph. My father, quiet but steady, nodded slowly, a small smile playing on his lips. Justice, he said quietly. Now we rebuild. 6 months later, the morning light streamed into my rebuilt workshop. The smell of sawdust filled the air, mingling with the faint tang of varnish. I ran my hands over the smooth surface of the workbench, the same bench where I had taught Colton to hammer, to measure, to build. Every mark, every dent told a story. Our story. The FBI had done their work meticulously. Melody, 12 years in federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Brent Caldwell, 15 years and disbarment. Dr. Harrison Vance, 8 years and stripped of his medical license. The court ordered full restitution, though much of the money had vanished. What remained was enough to rebuild the business, to reclaim the life that had been ripped from me. But it wasn't the money that mattered. What mattered was this Saturday morning. Colton and Piper working beside me, sanding, measuring, laughing, learning the craft I loved and had fought so hard to preserve. Together, we were building a custom bookshelf for their grandmother. The sound of the sander buzzing, the smell of fresh wood, the warmth of my children laughing. It was real. And it was mine again. "Dad," Piper asked, her small hand smoothing a board, "how do you trust anyone after what Mom did?" I paused, thinking about the question I had asked myself 1,000 times over these past months. The question that had kept me awake in the darkness of Motel Room 107, wondering if betrayal had permanently shattered my heart. "You know what your Grandpa Earl taught me," I said. "Trust, but verify. I trusted your mother completely, and that wasn't wrong. Love should include trust. But I ignored the warning signs because I wanted to believe the best. Real love. Real protection is about supporting while still keeping your eyes open. That's what Grandpa showed me when he worked behind the scenes, quietly, to protect me." Colton looked up from his measuring tape. "Do you hate her?" I shook my head. "No, son. Hate would mean she still has power over me. I don't hate her. I feel sorry for her. She had a family that loved her, a husband who would have died for her, and she threw it all away for money that's now frozen in federal accounts. She'll spend the next 12 years thinking about that choice. That's her punishment. I don't need to add to it." Chester Pike walked in carrying coffee and donuts, the first to return when I reopened Hutchkins Construction. Within a week, every crew member was back. Smaller, but stronger, united by loyalty and trust, ready to rebuild what had been stolen. "Vernon," Chester said, placing a cup of coffee beside me, "Mrs. Patterson wants you to build her guest house. She says she'll wait as long as it takes to get you specifically." "Tell her we'll start next month," I said, the smile returning to my face for the first time in years. My father appeared in the doorway, the familiar weight of his presence steady and grounding. He scanned the workshop like he always had, a critical eye softened by pride. "Looking good, son. Though that corner joint could be tighter," I grinned. "It's perfect, and you know it, old man. Just keeping you sharp," he said, his voice a comforting echo of all the lessons, all the protection, all the patience he'd given me. We worked in comfortable silence until Piper asked again, curiosity in her voice. "Dad, that private investigator, Mr. Ashford, his card is still on your desk. Why?" I picked up the card, reading the note my father had written on the back for the 100th time. "Son, a man isn't measured by what he loses, but by what he's willing to sacrifice for family. You sacrificed everything. Now let your family help you rebuild. No more pride. Just come home." He wants me to help other people going through what we went through. Fake illness scams are more common than you'd think. He wants me to consult, to share my story, to help people see the warning signs. "Will you?" Piper pressed, wide-eyed. "Maybe. Right now, I'm focused on rebuilding. But someday, yeah. If I can stop one person from going through what we went through, it'll be worth it," my mother's voice called from inside. "Lunch is ready. Everyone inside." As we walked toward the house, Dalton pulled up, his truck loaded with laughter and life. He'd started coming to every family meal, bringing his kids, ensuring I never felt alone. The house was alive again, the walls echoing with conversations. Arguments about football teams, the smell of home-cooked meals, the clatter of dishes, alive in a way it hadn't been in years. After lunch, I stood on the back porch with my father, watching Colton and Piper playing basketball in the driveway. The same hoop I had installed 15 years earlier still hung, slightly rusty but solid. "Dad," I said quietly, the weight of everything still in my chest. "I never properly thanked you." "You don't need to," he replied, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. His grip still strong at 74. "Yes, I do. You saved my life when I'd given up on it." He smiled, the lines on his face deepened by years of wisdom and sacrifice. "Son, you would have done the same for Colton. Hell, you did do the same for someone who didn't deserve it. That's not stupidity. That's character. The only difference between you and me is I've lived long enough to know that sometimes the people we love most are the ones capable of hurting us the worst. How do you know when to trust and when to verify?" I looked at him, knowing the answer before he spoke. "You don't," he said softly. "You just do both. You love with your whole heart, but keep your eyes open. And you make sure your family knows that no matter what happens, you've got their back." The motel key from room 107 still hung on a hook in my workshop, not as a reminder of the lowest point I'd ever known, but as proof. Rock bottom isn't the end if you have people who refuse to let you stay down. Every morning, when I grab my tools, I see it and remember the lesson etched into the hardest months of my life. Real strength isn't about never falling. It's about the people who refuse to let you stay down. A father who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. A brother who shows up without being asked. Friends who wait for you, loyal and patient, ready for your return no matter how long it takes. 2 weeks ago, a man called me. His wife had been diagnosed with a rare blood disease, but something felt off. Theodore Ashford had given him my number. "Mr. Hutchkins, I don't know where else to turn. I've already sold my car, and she's pushing me to sell the house. Can you meet me tomorrow?" I said, "and bring every piece of medical paperwork you have." Within minutes, inconsistencies leapt off the pages. Signatures that didn't match. Letterheads from hospitals that had been closed for years. Medications that made no sense for the disease she claimed. That man's wife is now under investigation. He still has his house. He still has his life. And I helped him reclaim it. "You just did," I told him. "And that's enough. Every person we help makes what I went through worth something." Colton recently wrote an essay for school about heroes. His grandfather, the man who fought a silent war to save his son. And me, who gave everything for love, even when that love was a lie. But mostly he wrote about the person who sees you at your lowest and says, "Get up. We're not done yet." The teacher called, concerned. The story was too mature for a 14-year-old. I told her he lived it. He earned the right to tell it. Yesterday, Piper performed at her spring concert, the same one I promised to attend back when life seemed perfect. I sat in the front row, flanked by my parents, Dalton beside me, Chester and the crew filling the rest of the seats. As she played her solo, my mind drifted to Melody, in prison, missing every moment she could have shared with them. And I thought about second chances, about grace we don't deserve but sometimes receive, about fathers who refuse to let their sons disappear into darkness, about the difference between being broken and being broken open. The knock on my motel door that night didn't just reveal the truth about Melody's deception. It revealed the truth about love, family, and the unbreakable bonds that hold us up when we can't stand on our own. I was a man who lost everything, saving someone who was never sick. But in losing everything, I found what truly mattered. Not the house I built, but the home my father kept alive in his heart. Not the business I created, but the brotherhood that waited for me. Not the marriage I thought I had, but the family that never let me go. If you've been broken by someone you trusted, know this. Your story isn't over. There are hands reaching out in the darkness. Sometimes they're wearing suits and carrying evidence. Sometimes they're your father, who never stopped believing. Sometimes it's future you, ready to fight. Rock bottom isn't the end. It's the foundation for something better. My name is Vernon Hutchkins. I'm a construction worker, a father, a son, and a survivor. I'm still here, still building, still trusting, still verifying, and that knock on my motel door? It wasn't just someone delivering truth. It was life itself saying, "We're not done yet. Your story continues."